Good evening, students. Today we will see overview of paper one in physiology. See, in general physiology, including body fluids, first you have to read about the cell organelle functions, the basic functions of the cell organelles, and second you have to remember the intercellular junctions. So there are three intercellular junctions: tight junctions, adherent junctions, and gap junctions. Then we have the cell addition molecules. So cell addition molecules, we have cadherin, integrin, selectins. These are the cell addition molecules. Then transport across the cell membrane. So there you have to talk about the types of transport. First you explain the functional anatomy of the cell membrane, like it is made up of phospholipids and proteins. Then you elaborate the types of transport, active transport and passive transport. Active, you have two types of transport, primary active transport and secondary active transport. And passive transport, you have diffusion and osmosis. In diffusion, you have simple diffusion and precipitated diffusion. And you have to narrate about the osmosis. Some special category of transport like endocytosis and exocytosis can be added. Next is the resting membrane potential. So potential at the rest, and you have to define the resting membrane potential, and it is usually negative. And you have to tell about the cause for the resting membrane potential. That is leaky potassium channel, potassium efflux, and how it is maintained. That you have to explain you by explaining the sodium potassium ATPase form. Then action potential. Action potential is you have to explain with the nerve action potential graph, how it is recorded, what are the parts of the action potential curve, and you have to talk about the stimulus artifact, latent period, slow depolarization, reaching the threshold level, then depolarization, rapid upstroke, then repolarization, that is downstroke, then you have after depolarization, then you have after hyperpolarization. So these are the parts of the action potential curve. Next is the pH and acid base. Regarding pH, you should know what is pH. It is a measure of the H plus ion, and based on the pH, you have two conditions: acidosis and alkalosis. And what are acids and what are the base? A proton donor is an acid, and a proton acceptor is a base. And read everything about the acid-base disorder also, like metabolic acidosis, metabolic alkalosis, respiratory acidosis, and respiratory alkalosis. Then regarding the neurons and neuroglial cells, in general physiology, you should know about the parts of the neurons, and neuroglial are the supporting cells, and we have three neuroglial cells: astrocytes, microglia, then um, Schwann cells and oligodendrocytes. The Schwann cells or the oligodendrocytes are the myelin forming cells, and the astrocytes forms the blood-brain barrier, and the microglia acts like the scavengers. The last topic is the body fluid. How to classify the body fluids? You have the intracellular fluid and extracellular fluids, and how we are measuring the intracellular fluid cannot be measured. So, a measurement of extracellular fluid. What are the substances used, and what is the nature of that particular substance that you have to explain. Then applied aspect here is the dehydration. And in general physiology, the possible applied aspects will be from transport across cell membrane, where we will be talking about the oral rehydration solution, how the sodium glucose transport mechanism was applied in the um, oral rehydration solution preparation. And we have the action of digitalis, the digoxin drug, how it acts by blocking the sodium potassium ATPase form. So that was another applied aspect. Next is the blood. In the blood, you have to talk about the plasma proteins. three albumin, globulin, and fibrinogen. And albumin and the function of plasma protein, general functions we have to read, like maintaining the viscosity, maintaining the osmotic pressure, act like a transporters for the hormones, and the immunoglobulins especially plays important role in immunity, and the fibrinogen plays an important role in the clotting mechanism. So all comes under the functions of plasma proteins. The next is the RBC. In RBC, you have to know of the erythropoiesis. What are the steps in the erythropoiesis? Starting from stem cells, we have um, chemocytoblast, then proerythroblast, early normoblast, intermediate normoblast, late normoblast, reticulocyte, and RBC. And factors regulating erythropoiesis explain about the erythropoietin hormone. That is very important. Then vitamin B12 and folic acid. Then hormones, hormonal regulation like thyroid and testosterone stimulating, estrogen inhibiting erythropoiesis. And anemia is very important because I told you in chapter 1 we have now two top questions, short notes will be from integrated topics, and the very important integrated topic is anemia. Read all everything about the anemia. What are the types of anemias, and in detail about the sickle cell anemia, megaloblastic anemia, and hemolytic anemias. So make a thorough read about the anemia. Then WBC, in WBC you have the types of WBC, and in immunity, the immunity will be a structured question, can be asked in essay also. We have humoral immunity and cell-mediated immunity. How the humoral immunity mechanism happens and how the cell-mediated immunity mechanism happens, and what is autoimmunity and what is graft injection. Then coming to platelet, regarding platelet, you remember about the functions of the platelet, how platelet plug is formed by addition, aggregation, and activation. Then coagulation. Coagulation is nothing but clot formation. It is a step in the hemostasis. So when the question is asked as hemostasis, you have to write about the first step as vasoconstriction, second is the platelet plug formation, and third is the clot formation. Under the clot formation, we have to explain about the intrinsic and extrinsic pathways. If the question is asked only coagulation means you can directly go for the clot formation. Before explaining the mechanism, you elaborate about the clotting factors, list of the clotting factors, and you list out and you explain the role of the liver and vitamin K in the clotting factors. And you explain about the intrinsic and extrinsic pathways of clotting factors, how they are activated, how they lead to a common pathway, and how the fibrin is formed. The next is the blood grouping. Blood grouping, we have to talk about the ABO blood group systems and RH group system. And in RH, more applied aspect will be asked, like RH incompatibility, which leads to a disease called erythroblastosis fetalis. What are the features of the fetalis? And again, in blood grouping, the applied aspect is mismatched blood transfusion will be asked. And so these are some of the applied aspects will be asked. The next topic is the nerve muscle physiology. We talk about the neuroglial cells, supporting cells, and nerve fiber classification based on the diameter A, B, and C. Under A alpha, A beta, and A gamma, nerve fiber classification. We call it as Erlanger-Gasser classification. Then molecular base of muscle contraction. You explain about the actin myosin bridge formation, or how actin and myosin attach, how the cross bridge is formed, and it is also explained in other way as walk-around theory. So all these three topics have same answers. You have to explain the cross bridge formation between actin and myosin. And here you should have an idea about the sarcomere. What is sarcomere? What are the bands? And what are the lines in the sarcomere? Then you explain the cross bridge formation between actin and myosin. And what is power stroke? And what is the role of ATP in muscle contraction? Also relaxation. Then you have to write about the rigor mortis also. So what is rigor mortis? That is the applied aspect. And excitation contraction coupling is a broad topic. Here it includes the transmission from the neuromuscular junction and how it transmission enters the subcortical system, how it enters the T tubule, and how the calcium is released from the N tubule, and how that calcium is involved in the cross bridge formation. So cross bridge formation requires two substances. One is the ATP, other one is the calcium. And the next topic is the smooth muscle types. And in nerve muscle physiology, applied aspects are myasthenia gravis, that is the neuromuscular junction part. Then in the muscle part, we will ask muscular dystrophy. What is muscular dystrophy? What is Duchenne muscular dystrophy? And other than these topics, we have a knowledge about isotonic and isometric contraction. And what is red muscle fiber and white muscle fiber? Red muscle fiber contain high myoglobin content. White muscle fiber contain low myoglobin content. And you should know what are the difference between the red muscle fiber and white muscle fiber. The next, in the endocrine part, we have the anterior pituitary where we have all the hormones. You have to read in detail about all the hormones. And more applied aspect will be asked from the endocrine part because it is having more clinical physiology portion is there. Like in growth hormone, you have applied aspect like acromegaly, gigantism. Then follicular stimulating hormone, what is the function? Luteinizing hormone, ACTH, and prolactin, and TSH. In posterior pituitary, two hormones, oxytocin and vasopressin. Here, the applied aspect should be from diabetes insipidus. What is diabetes insipidus? Deficiency of vasopressin leads to diabetes insipidus. And this I have given in bold letter thyroid hormone because it is one of the integrated topic. So out of the 11 short notes, two short notes from integrated topic. In first paper, there are only three topics: anemia, thyroid hormone, and diabetes mellitus. So you will get two questions from these three topics. So concentrate more on these three topics: anemia, thyroid hormone, and diabetes mellitus. So in thyroid hormone, all about the functions of thyroid hormone and the steps in the synthesis of thyroid hormone will be asked as structured short notes or essay question. Parathyroid hormone, the functions of parathyroid hormone and how it regulates the calcium level along with vitamin D and calcitonin. Pancreatic hormones, we have four hormones by A, B, D, and F cells. And here, the question format, most common question will be hormones regulating blood glucose level, which includes insulin and glucagon. So other than this, we have to explain about the role of thyroid hormone in regulating glucose level, cortisol in regulating the glucose level. So this to be added. Then diabetes mellitus, read everything about diabetes mellitus, what are the types of diabetes mellitus, and what is the physiology behind the pathogenesis of the diabetes mellitus. Then adrenal cortical hormone, you read about the steps in the synthesis of adrenal cortical hormones, and applied aspects are very important in adrenal cortical hormones part, like Conn's syndrome, Cushing syndrome, then Addison's disease. In adrenal medullary hormones part, you have to talk about the what are the hormones secreted and what are the functions of the catecholamines, norepinephrine, epinephrine, and dopamine. An applied aspect, pheochromocytoma. Pheochromocytoma is a tumor producing excess catecholamines. Reproduction, under reproduction, spermatogenesis. What is the duration of spermatogenesis and what are the stages of spermatogenesis? And what is the role of the hormones in regulating the spermatogenesis? Next is the menstrual cycle, this female sexual cycle. You have to elaborate about the uterine changes, ovarian changes, cervical changes, and vaginal changes. So uterine changes, you have three phases like menstrual phase, proliferatory phase, and secretory phase. Ovarian changes, you have the luteal phase, ovulation, and follicular phase, ovulation, and luteal phase. And physiology of pregnancy, what are the changes taking place in the physiology, the mechanism, the body functions in pregnancy, how the body get adapted to the pregnancy, and what is a pregnancy test? What is the role of HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin, in the pregnancy test? Then contraceptives, we have to talk about read about the male contraceptives and female contraceptives. Next, in the GAT, we spoke about the enteric nervous system, that is the autonomic third division of autonomic nervous system, myenteric plexus and mesenteric plexus in introduction. Then deglutition, we have three phases: oral phase, pharyngeal phase, and esophageal phase. Then HCl secretion. There are three phases in HCl secretion: gastric, cephalic phase, gastric phase, and intestinal phase. And how it is secreted from the parietal cell. What is the mechanism of secretion? Then functions of the GA hormones. At least five hormones you have to read: gastrin, secretin, otilin, CCK, that is cholecystokinin. Then VAP, that is vasoactive intestinal peptide. GAP, gastric inhibitory peptide. Then GA movements in the stomach. You remember about read about the gastric emptying and what is retroperistalsis in GAT in stomach. Then peristalsis. Peristalsis you can explain in esophagus, in the stomach, and in the intestine. And you have to explain about the law of gut. And segmentation, it is happening in the small intestine, mixing type of movement. Then ostration, it is a movement occurring in the large intestine. Uh, then mass movement, it is a type of segmentation occurring in the large intestine. Then migratory motor complex, it is a single wave movement happening from the stomach to the ileum, and it is the sweeper of GAT. Then GA secretions, the functions of all the secretion, functions of saliva, functions of bile. That is the role of bile salt in fat emulsification and absorption by forming the micelle, to be explained. Gastric, that we saw in the gastric secretion, what is the function? Then intestinal secretion, you have to elaborate of the intestinal enzymes that plays important role in the enzyme action for the digestion. Then pancreatic secretions, that is enzyme. Here we are talking about enzyme pancreatic secretions like trypsin and lipase, amylase, pancreatic lipase and amylase. The trypsin and chymotrypsin, we have to talk in the intestinal secretion. Coming to the excretory system, the type of nephrons, extramedullary and cortical nephron, what is the difference? And what is GFR definition? What are the factors regulating the GFR? In factors regulating GFR, you elaborate about the stalling forces like hydrostatic pressure and oncotic pressure. Also, you elaborate about the glomerular tubular mechanism or tubulo-glomerular feedback mechanism in the regulation of GFR. Coming to the countercurrent mechanism, you have to explain two topics: countercurrent multiplier and countercurrent exchanger. Multiplier by the Henle loop and exchanger by the vasa recta. This mechanism is for concentration of the urine. Coming to acid-base regulation, we talk about the acidification of urine at various segments, like the role of proximal tubule and the role of collecting duct and the role of distal tubule. They are very important. How they regulate the H plus ion by secreting more H plus ion when there is excess H plus ion in the blood, or by reabsorbing bicarbonate. So this is a correction of the H plus ion level by the kidney. Then blood pressure regulation. Here you have to explain about the JG apparatus, juxtaglomerular apparatus, and renin-angiotensin mechanism. How the blood pressure is regulated. Then artificial kidney, that is part of dialysis. What is dialysis and what is the role of the dialysis? in eliminating the waste from the body. The last is the AdCom. So one question will be from the AdCom. So here we are talking about doctor-patient relationship, how you have to communicate, how you have to behave, and all these things. We have provided the question banks, and we will go through the questions for the AdCom. So yeah, 5 mark will be very easy to get from AdCom. So a mandatory one question will be from the AdCom. So you have two questions from the integrated. So for integrated, you read the three topics: anemia, thyroid, and diabetes mellitus, and two questions from the applied aspects. So you try to gather questions related to applied aspects. What are the applied or clinical physiology? And six will be a structured questions. So if you are able to make the 11 short notes itself, it will be very easy to get through the examination. Thank you.